All right. No News Monday recap. Let's get into it. So going into the day, this is uh that's not previous day lows. Where's previous day lows? That is previous day lows. Uh that's confusing because Friday is like right here. Should be that. Okay. So going into the day, um, as you can see, we're still in this range. Overall, I am bearish, longer term, just because we have all this low resistance liquidity like piled up right here. Um, and we filled this imbalance already, and like there's a breaker we can react from. So bearish right now. Uh, Now this is interesting because usually there's manipulation in London session, but we have manipulation in Asia this time. So Asia swept out previous day highs going to the day, and we started reacting from that, displacing downward. And when we opened up today in the morning session, we were kind of in the middle of nowhere. Morning session started like right here, right? Then there's to the left, there was nothing. We're inside of this chop where we're reacting from. So we can't really, since we're inside of this, there's nothing that's going to be very high probability. Unless you react from something in this leg, but we haven't reached anything so far. So since I was bearish, I honestly I don't really need to see London high taken. I just want to see this high swept, this 15-minute high inside of this fair value gap. I wanted that swept and then 22 mile out of that. Um yeah, so I'm just gonna drop down to the lower time frame. And as you can see, market open was like right here, right? The price didn't go anywhere in the morning session at all. At like absolutely nowhere. It just chopped around. And I did notice this, and I didn't take any trades. Well, sort of. I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, first fair value gap, 1 minute fair value gap that happened was 942, right? That's the first settlement for value gap. You want to see what happens. Usually with the settlement for value gaps, if it wants to respect it, you want to see respect, displacement for value gap, and then enter off of that. Or if it inverses, you want to see an inverse, a retest, and then displacement out of that, and then a fair value gap to enter off of. And we didn't really see any of that because it was just choppy and bad price action. Oh, excuse me. Um, okay. So trying to figure out where the move happened. Okay, yeah, it was over here. So the only kind of move that could have occurred was you could have said this was a market structure shift right here. Um, I wasn't confident in that whatsoever. There was this low right here that we did displace through, but then we came down and swept these lows. Like it came down all the way down here and swept this. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, we swept all that low resistance liquidity right there. We did have more to the downside, but I believe this was like a some sort of fair value. Was it a fair value yet? Where am I? No, we came into this 15-minute order block actually. Um, and so since we tapped right into that with sweeping that liquidity, just didn't have conviction with it. My mentor did signal this or whatever, and I didn't take it because I was just waiting on the reaction, see how this was respected, and we saw displacement and then displacement, and the candle came all the way up here, and I just didn't like how price action was presenting itself today, so didn't bother to take that, and really it didn't it you didn't get anything out of that move. You would have gone maybe first CP, but for me it wouldn't have been first CP. Um, Yeah, you wouldn't even gone you would have gone barely a 1 to 2, which is fine, but I would have held it to where my draw was initially. So even if I did enter in that, I would have just gotten break even. So it doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, I just saw what price action was, and usually when it chops, either you see price action clean up in the second AM macro or during lunch hour and the PM session. So I gave it a look, see what happened, and I didn't see shit because shit didn't happen. It just kept chopping. So I was off there, but I did expect something in the PM at some point. Um, and it actually happened to be a really clean trade. We kept chopping and chopping during lunch and even the beginning of the PM. But right at the 2 p.m. Candle, so 2 to 3 p.m., price decided to absolutely cook. So yeah, my draw is still bearish, right? So if I was on the charts right here, I would have been able to enter at 215 the latest. So I wouldn't even gotten an entry if I as long as I stuck to my rules basically. So that doesn't matter. But what we did have super clean setup, right? Since I was bearish, we swept the buy side and we also had an SMT divergence at the top and saw displacement out of it. This is the first time we saw like a really heavy displacement through a low. There was this one right here, but that didn't really end up going anywhere. But you could have still taken it to that low. That would have been fine. But yeah, that's not when I take my trades as it wasn't during the macro. But yeah, SMT at the top and then displacement through that low, super clean. So you have this breaker block and we have this fair value gap right here. Unicorn setup. Um, and I also learned why price doesn't like if there's a fair value gap above this, which there was right here, why you don't need to put your stop. Like for example, if my entry was right here, why you don't need to put your stop above that fair value gap is you can expect that to be a breakaway gap because not only do you have this breaker and this fair value gap, right? Overlapping price, which should be strong enough already because a breaker block is a balanced price range. So in a balanced price range, price doesn't need to come back to that area. It can, and it's a strong reaction, but you almost never see past like the CE of the BPR uh just like get disrespected basically. So as you can see, just for funsies, I'm gonna mark out the central, right? Yeah, we got like barely a close right there, but for the majority of the time, the wicks just kept protecting that CE. And also we had this inverse fair value gap. So we have the breaker block, which is a balanced price range, which is with the fair value gap, and then also an inverse fair value gap right here. So all of this is already balanced, and there's no reason for price to come all the way down here to that breakaway gap and then go lower. So usually you can expect the bottom or the top, whichever one, if you're buying or selling of the breaker block to hold because it's technically a BPR. And yeah, so we had this turtle soup SMT actually right there. Turtle soup SMT right here too. But yeah, turtle soup SMT, and then we could have rode that to the draw, which was previous day lows, which honestly is pretty insane. Yeah, almost a 10 RR right there. But yeah, that was the one setup that happened today, and it happened outside of my trading time, so I couldn't take it. But yeah, just learned a couple things. Today was just a matter of patience, just being patient. And I was incredibly patient today, and some people weren't, and like someone I know blew their account today because they weren't patient and they kept risking on a shitty day like this where it's low probability. So you just have to be able to recognize high resistance versus low resistance, high resistance today because we spent so much time in every single fair value gap and we weren't sweeping out the low resistance liquidity. So when you're in that, price action just isn't as efficient. It spends time in the fair value gaps. It rebalances way lower or way higher than it needs to. Um, and that's what was shown today until the PM session, because when the AM session chops, the PM session has better price action usually. So yeah, pretty easy day to sit out. But yeah, there was one clean trade, but I didn't get to enter sadly. But I know what to look for in the future. Exactly what I need to look for, and I know a better place to put my stop. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a 10 RR with my previous stop that I would have had because I didn't learn about the breakaway gaps. But since I learned that, I would have put it below the inverse fair value gap. So it was a 24 RR trade. I just want to do the math. If I risked 500 on that and I held it all the way to TP, risking 500 gained 12,000. So yeah. This shows you that if you wait for the right setups, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter like how many small losses you have. You can always make it back and more with just one good trade. So, yep, that's it.